What's up, good people? My name is AJ and you are watching Straight Talks. The topic of the video here today is going to be all about marketing for the CFP charter, and that can be pretty difficult for a couple reasons, but the CFP board also helps you out in a couple ways to market your having the CFP marks and being a CFP professional. You don't want to just go on and on talking about it because you risk sounding arrogant or sounding like you're bragging about certain things, which some people might be when they're talking about the charter that they are extremely proud of having. But you also don't want to completely ignore the fact that you have the CFP letters because they're valuable and they can make a big difference in a client's opinion of you, either through an introductory meeting or in an ongoing relationship, because it's going to let them know that their advisor or their financial planner, if you previously were not a CFP professional, now has reached or is working at a new standard that they otherwise weren't in the past. Or if you have been a CFP professional for a long period of time, you're communicating that fact to your clients so that they know you are meeting higher levels of education requirements than other people in the field who may have no professional designation. So it's important to get the word out there, but it's a balance around how you communicate that and how you market the CFP profession. I think I have a handful of good ideas on how to best do that. The CFP helps out with this, the firm I work at helps out with this, and they really come together on what are the most effective but most realistic and also humble ways to communicate the value of your holding the CFP letters and being a CFP professional. So let's get into it. First, I want to reiterate that point that really the only negative implication for marketing your CFP professional marks are that you can come off as sounding pretentious or arrogant or full of it. And that is a valid concern. You certainly don't want to sound that way to prospective clients or existing clients. Nobody likes someone who's really full of themselves. But it also needs to be said that, and maybe I'm talking to myself a little bit here because this is one of the things I struggle with. It needs to be said that there is an effective way to communicate credentials or communicate a body of knowledge to people without sounding arrogant. It doesn't always come off negatively, and so there's a good way to do that. I'm going to talk about some of those ways here, as well as outside forces from which you can get some help in doing this. You should know that number one, it's important to communicate those types of things to clients. They would rather know about those than not know about those, and there are plenty of ways to do this. So just know that even though it's something you might not be comfortable with, again, speaking to myself here, it is important to do, and if you practice at it, you'll be in a position where you're comfortable doing it in the future. So one really good area is the marketing material that the CFP board provides you with through the marketing section on the CFP website. I've looked through most of these myself, and they all seem like things that would be beneficial for clients to have or clients to know without you having directly to tell the clients, hey, I think I'm really good at this job for XYZ reasons. They include pieces about things like what exactly the CFP certification is. They include things about the ethical standards that CFP professionals are required to perform under. They have things that are culminations of articles or public releases from other institutions or publications about the CFP profession and why it may be beneficial for you to be working with the CFP professional. So if you get that off the CFP board's website and give it to your client, and there's 10 well-known magazines that talk about why CFPs are good, your client is likely to receive that information fairly well and understand that it's a valuable thing that you possess, and it improves your ability to service them in the relationship they have with you. Of course, the CFP board's also going to be happy to sell you things like t-shirts and vests and mugs and pens and all that you can proudly display on your desk in your office, and maybe it will spark a question from some client like, hey, what is that CFP thing there? And you can then give them the formal background about what the CFP is based on the material that I just mentioned the CFP board will give you, and it explains it pretty well, the ethical standards, all that. So at least those are things that can lead into the conversation generated from the client's end rather than you having to tell them up front, hey, here's another thing that's good about me, because while it can be communicated well, I don't think it usually sounds great. Another great method, I think most people will be able to utilize something like this. I know I've been able to a little bit. Maybe your firm isn't going to have anything to help you out in this regard, but hopefully they do. But that's going to be the internal resources that your firm has. And for me, that's been twofold. The office that I work in does some spotlight stories through publications that get mailed out or emailed out to clients, and also social media profiles. We have a very widely followed social media page. It's the second most liked Facebook page relative to the competition of all the other firms that use the same clearinghouse that we do. So because of that, we have some following that we can put things out on, and they'll say, hey, congratulations, AJ, are in the CFP. Or hey, this is what the CFP is. We have a few advisors that have the CFP standard, just in, like I said, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, email blasts that go out to everyone. So there's some passive advertising on my behalf and on the firm's behalf where they can talk about the value of the CFP charter or any other charter that you might have for that matter. It's nice when your firm can do it for you indirectly. And then the second layer to that is I mentioned the larger firm that we clear through. They also have some marketing material that you can, or I mean we can in our office, order directly from the larger clearinghouse. They're either really well put together pamphlets that you just keep like a smaller stack of maybe 10 or 20 of them in the office that you can hand out to clients when they walk in, or they give you less substantial things that can get mailed out to hundreds or thousands of people or emailed out to the same amount of people. So it's just kind of another level of content similar to what the CFP board puts together themselves, but it's a little bit more from a third party's perspective, and it also is taken from the perspective that this guy working with you is representing us using these letters and these marks, and they're good for you for these reasons. So again, it's like a third party thing rather than the CFP board telling the person directly why the CFP is a nice mark to have. The next one is the one that is going to be the most difficult for most people. It certainly is for me, and that's through your word of mouth communication in client meetings, either with prospects or with existing clients, about the value of the CFP charter. This could be a much longer conversation, and I'm nowhere near the best at communicating to all of you about how you can better improve your communication skills in talking with clients about a credential you have. So for the absolutely best advice, make sure to check out some how to sell yourself videos or books out there that will give you much more psychological guidance on managing that conversation. But I will give you one tidbit from my own personal opinion for the purposes of this video on how I think I've seen things like this be communicated well. By well, I mean not coming off as arrogant, and so how I've tried to flip that into my own communication with my clients. I have no idea why this is the example that resonates with me, but this is the one I always think of whenever the conversation of how to market yourself comes up, so I'd like to share it with you here. I have a client that works in a blue-collar industry, runs a business, small business, like 10 employees, and they pay for a consulting service from a major corporation that provides them with really business coaching on how to better manage their business, because this industry that they operate in is not a financial or accounting or any numbers-based industry. So when you get into, and when my client got into this industry, they really knew nothing about running a business. So anyway, they pay for a consulting service to help them most efficiently and effectively run their business. But I went with them to the meeting when they were originally considering signing up with this consulting service. And so it's basically a sales presentation from a manager at the consulting services business that says, hey, this is why small businesses like yours need to pay us a pretty good chunk of money for our consulting services and how much we can help you. And in this person's description of the service that they were selling and how many other small businesses in the same industry have benefited from paying for the service and why it's going to benefit you, he had tidbits thrown in of his sales presentation that my client, the one that I was sitting next to with, didn't really pick up on, but I did, and I asked my client about their perspective on those tidbits later on. And all of these tidbits were little humble brags, but they were subtle, so they weren't like the mainstream humble brags that you hear about when people use that term nowadays. They were things like the salesman at the time was going, yeah, I mean, when I was 20 years old, I was running a really successful distribution chain in a major parts supplier, and I was making gobs of money, but I wanted to get into to help people out in this space. And maybe I'm not selling that as well as he was in that sales conference, but two things there. I was running it really big at a young age and also making gobs of money. Those were his word for word interpretations of that. I just thought, man, is this guy kind of bragging here? Then later on in the conversation, he kept using phrases like, this is why a lot of our customers and why a lot of people who want to be our customers tell us that we are the best at what we do. Both of those things to me sounded a little bit odd, but the way that he was communicating those things did not at all sound pretentious or arrogant. And I kind of just picked up on those. Anyway, there were one or two other things throughout this person's sales pitch that he said that were kind of like establishing credibility. And I asked my client about this after the sales pitch. I said, hey, did you notice a couple of things that he had said? And the client said, yeah, I heard those things. And I kind of said, what was your opinion on those? Well, it sounds like they're doing really well. It sounds like they're doing a great job. It sounds like they're, and my client had only positive impressions on the way that those messages were communicated. And they were all bragging type messages. There were reasons why the consulting service was good, and they were coming directly from the consulting service. So I wondered to myself, how is it that my client, and I didn't think they sounded pretentious either, but I did kind of notice them, But I wondered, how is it that my client didn't even notice the fact that these were statements made directly by a service about why that service is so good rather than coming from a third party, but didn't think they sounded pretentious? And I did some thinking about that. I also have talked with my manager now at the firm where I work about how that has affected my opinion on this matter. And my conclusions on that thinking really have just been that the salesperson in that instance said these items quickly and very matter-of-factly. And I believe there was something significant about the speed at which he spoke when he made these claims of success, and also the tone of voice that he used when he said them, because again, they sounded very matter-of-fact. They didn't sound like that they were disputed by anyone out there in the marketplace. They were just, hey, we're great, we're the best, I was making gobs of money, whatever, and kind of skipped over them. So they're still words that the person heard, but they were not, hey, this is the resounding point I want you to hear, because that would have made it far too obvious, and then it could have sounded pretentious or bragging. That's the methods I've been using to communicate the value of the CFP, CFA, other professional designations, or other things that I think are valuable that I offer to clients. Again, it's just two things. Say them relatively quickly and kind of sprinkle them into other information that you're communicating at the time. Maybe use them in the middle of a sentence or whatever. And also say them very matter-of-factly. There's no, hey, this is why it's really good, or a lot of people say it's really good. Nothing like that implies maybe you don't think it's good, but other people do, or anything of the sort. Just, this is really good, and this is why. Boom, done. And then continue on with the conversation in another direction. And both of those things help, I think, in allowing you to communicate positive credentials about yourself without coming off as arrogant or pretentious. Finally, I'm happy that the CFP board does a lot of this publicly through their campaign to raise public awareness of the CFP profession. I'm also a CFA charter holder, and this is a huge complaint of CFA charter holders globally, which is that the CFA Institute does almost nothing to market to investors worldwide, or just the general population in the United States or in Europe or globally, that the CFA is a good thing, or even that it's a thing at all. And really most people out there in the world don't know what the CFA is. And even people in the investment space, meaning clients who have invested dollars, don't know what it is. It's usually like hiring managers who know someone or already have the CFA themselves that understand the value of it. Long story short, the CFP does a great job at its campaign to raise awareness towards the value of the CFP marks. I mean, they have commercials, they have ads, they have a great website with ads that go back to that website. So if you are in a client meeting or your client sees that you recently became a CFP professional, there's a chance that a portion of those clients or a portion of those prospects out there and just individuals, investors, are going to know that the CFP is a valuable thing. And the CFP board has also done such a good job that they're actually getting a pretty good amount of traffic, from what I understand, through their search function on their website to find a financial advisor, because there are enough people who, when they understand what they want in a financial advisor, only think of the CFP. And the CFP has done a good enough job of selling itself that they communicate to clients that, hey, I only want to work with an advisor who's a CFP. So they go through the CFP's website to actually find an advisor local to them. The fact that the CFP board has brought some traffic to that search function is pretty impressive in my opinion. And it shows that they're doing a great job to raise public awareness and also market their marks very highly to the public, and it has meant that people around the world have a pretty good opinion of CFP professionals. So if you do the things, if you use the materials from the CFP in your own firm, you're doing social media, you're doing email, all that type of marketing, just from the passive marketing that the CFP board does for you, and then maybe most importantly, what I talked about, effectively communicate just by your own, in your client meetings and in other social gatherings with people, the value of the CFP marks, you're going to do a much better job than if you, of course, did none of these things at all. But really, I think you're going to be impressed by the value that doing all of these things can bring and the amount of awareness that they will create, rather than being very passive about this thing. And think about your career over the next 3 to 5 years and how much different it could look if you just do these simple things right, rather than if you don't focus on these at all. And you might be surprised at the value that it will bring to you and to your clients because of the increased knowledge or increased standards or ethical duties that you are adhering to because of your involvement in the CFP board. So they're all good things. I think they're really valuable for you to be utilizing. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anything you think I missed, better ways to market the CFP letters, and also any comments on things you think I said well or said poorly. We can hash them out down below. So as always, thanks for watching.